Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Matilda Tham, and I have with me Åsa Ståhl, and we are both researchers at Linnaeus University, and we represent the Earth Logic Design Agency. This is a speculative and prefigurative design agency, and it explores what it can mean to research and practice design from a paradigm that prioritizes the survival and health of Earth and all its species, including humans. That's what we mean by Earth Logic. And at the heart of this agency is co-creation with citizens, with organizations, companies, knowledge institutions, media, as well as more than human species. And what we want to share today is how this attempt at a, we would say, authentic and also very complex co-creation also highlights some itchy, joyous, and surprising dimensions of citizen science. And not least the time-consuming nature of building trusting relationships that it needs, and also maybe some hierarchies between ways of knowing, epistemologies in the university. And we think that some of these, which we argue are legacies of the scientific revolution, may not actually fit in our attempts to address the very entangled and urgent crisis that humanity is facing today. The exhibition that we are talking about today is curated by Åsa Ståhl and I, Matilda Tham, in collaboration with the Cultural University at Linnaeus University and especially Helene Hägglund. And the research that we are talking about, Earth Logic Design, forms part of a bigger program that is called INQUIS, Innovative Cultural Entrepreneurship in Collaboration, which is funded by the Family Kamprad Foundation. And we are very grateful for the invitation from EUniWell to share this work today with you. And we want to take you to the very heart of co-creation. We are now at the opening night of the Earth Logic Design Agency films, and they star people who in different ways work with entrepreneurship, cultural entrepreneurship, in a way that we think sort of meets the Earth Logic way. So supporting relationships with people, with other species, and Earth. And in one way, this moment is very simple. It is people coming together, drinking festive non-alcoholic drinks and eating popcorn and watching these films. It's also a moment of synergy with very different kinds of knowledges coming together. And maybe it seems effortless. Is it effortless, Åsa?
Of course, there's lots of efforts involved, and we'll tell you a lot about this along the way here.
Yeah, and we really want to emphasize with this that at the heart of co-creation, when it really works, is also a craft of co-creation, which has value and which takes time to develop. So welcome into the exhibition.
And a bit of background about the two of us. We're design researchers. Matilda Tham and I both have experience of co-creative research, citizen science for over 2 decades each. And some of the things that we bring with us are, for example, Matilda Tham anchored in meta design, which is an overarching design of mindsets, cultures, systems, and methods and processes for transformative co-creation, informed by action research. So that's kind of what you partly draw on, Matilda. For my own sake, I kind of grew up as a researcher in the field of participatory design, which has a strong history in Scandinavia. My own version is particularly rooted in feminist technoscience and environmental post-humanities. We also collaborate with Maja Frögård, postdoc, in our research project with experience in collaborative design research. And some of the references, they foreground, or actually most of our references foreground relationality and entanglement, feminist technoscience, more than human and decolonial perspectives, also resilience and systems thinking. So the kind of rich and shared and motley different body of co-creative work cover many themes and contexts. What we've already researched are, for example, active aging, inclusive housing, donut economies, forest and fashion sectors, and all of those are within a broad and systemic understanding of sustainability and all with multiple stakeholders. So citizen science is absolutely foregrounded in our references.
And we want to highlight how this work is science-based, which it is in many ways, but there is a particular body of work or a paper that we think is of value to reference here, and that is Ståhl et al. From 2021, which makes a very clear and edgy analysis of why we haven't been able to bend the climate curve. And from my analysis of this and our reading of this, we draw out 4 key aspects which we also actually address in this exhibition and in the Earth Logic work that we do. And one issue is that we have failed to address the systemic challenges we face with the dominant way of thinking. So we try to approach these challenges from a different logic or paradigm, which is the idea of Earth Logic. Another issue is the tendency to cut things apart rather than look at them whole. So separating, for example, environmental issues from social issues and personal experience from global frameworks. So here we try to take an uncompromisingly systemic approach to sustainability. We also know that there has been a tendency to lean on technology very much in addressing the global challenges at the cost of a focus on social norms and imaginaries. So how we want to live our lives and the stories of how we want to live our lives. And so that is one of the key focus points here. Another framework that's important to us comes from the meta design work, and it is a kind of nested model of change. And we thinking of change as an agile dance between what happens between what we do, how we organize what we do, and why we do what we do, and also between the experience of the individual, me, the collective unit, we, and the wider society and the ecosystems that we are all living within. And that we think that this continuous reflection is really important across these levels. And for our research and design work, this is very much a question of agency to understand this holistically, because over the last few decades, when design has tried to address climate change and other key issues, we have seen that so long as the dominant logic is to make more, design that is solely directed at the level of the product, or even discrete systems like business models of leasing instead of owning, will not be sufficient. And so we are in this work, which is informed by some work I have done previously with Kate Fletcher, which is called the Earth Logic Project. We are addressing change at the level also of paradigms. So we could say that downstream, when we design at the level of product, we have more predictability, but also lesser agency. And upstream, we have definitely increased complexity, but also arguably more agency and less predictability. So as I said, this draws on the Earth Logic project, which drew on insights from a broken fashion system, but has applied to different sectors. And in this project, we are particularly working with 3 areas of action that we could understand as meta practices. So learning and unlearning, languaging, which is different, using words, imagery, and narratives to open or close conceptual spaces and action spaces, and governance, which is about organizing, distributing, negotiating. And so the project we will talk about today is the Earthlog Design Agency exhibition. And we want to show how we have worked with citizen science in this project. The Earthlogic Design project is there to kind of rehearse a game plan for design that is motivated by the health of Earth and all the species, including humans. And really by working in a quite hands-on way, see what kind of practices might be needed, what kind of designer roles could emerge, and also indicator framework, so how we can understand whether this kind of work is working or not, as we think that indicator frameworks from the economic growth logic framework is not really working, because we don't want to make as much as possible, for example. And I should say that this project forms part of the larger program of INQUIS, which I mentioned before. And in total, there are 6 different sub-projects within this program. And it runs into a few years more from now, into 27.
The work that Matilda, Maya, and I have been conducting, we can kind of divide it into 3 phases. One of them was to do situated explorations in a kind of smallish town with its surrounding, so both kind of rural and urban environment. And it's familiar in the sense that it's a town that I grew up in, so there are still contacts to build on, but also lots of changes since I moved and left that town. These explorations in a very grounded situation allows a systemic and holistic understanding of conditions and relationships, practices, and roles. So we've been working with cultural entrepreneurs in Ljungby. The first phase also involves a survey, which was an online, Matilda, let's say global survey?
It's a global survey. So we have this super local approach where we're working hands-on, and then we also have the survey, which reaches change agents much more widely.
So the empirical work in Ljungby, they allowed for conditions for relationship building with researcher roles that really where we have to practice a lot of curiosity, relationship building, listening, staying in tune. The next phase was to take some of this empirical work into a more speculative setting, building up the Earth Logic Design Agency with the Cultural University in the university library of Linnaeus University, Växjö campus. We created a site for not only our own creation, but co-creation. And it invited publics, or it invited for publics to emerge, rather, inside and outside the university, co-creating from an Earth Logic mind and heart set, allowing rehearsing of practices, methods, tools, artifacts for research, for administration, for everyday life, and much more. And then a third focus, going out from the kind of spiraling out from the exhibition into new fields where we offer services to organizations, exploring a new designer role, practices, tools, and frameworks. And as we've been doing across all these years, allowing dialogue across paradigms and relevant seeding of change. Today, we will focus on, next slide, please. Yes. We will focus on the exhibition itself, the site for co-creation. And with that, I hand over to Matilda.
And maybe I can just mention that we say Earth Logic mind and heart set and do that. So in the beginning, I said we're drawing on this paper by Stoddard. It's been very important for us to always show that our work is science-based. But it is based on many different ways of knowing, so that's why we also highlight the heart set here. And this is also where we want people to invite people to be present in these questions with their minds, but also their hearts and guts and their whole selves and their communities. But we feel that, or we know that we often have to legitimize our work. So we have to state the science as well. And this is a picture that is drawn from the meta design nests that we showed before. So it's a coil that messily moves from the level of me to we to world and back again. And at the beginning of this specific coil was the invitation from the Cultural University to collaborate, and this led to us designing this unfolding exhibition. And that happened roughly a year ago, actually, a bit more than a year ago. And so we had some very interesting conversations with Helene Hägglund, and we started working and preparing for the exhibition. And it opened in March 2025. And the first thing we did was to, together with the people who came to the opening, to create an advanced start field. So what are the observations, experiences, scientific reports that make us really eager to act? So not just theory again, but also experiences, maybe like observing chanterelles growing in the middle of the winter, when in fact they should just be there the other part of the year, and so forth. At this time we also co-created a portal, the portal to transport us to different minds and heart sets. And this portal has several layers of kind of curtains, and together we decided that the first layer needed to be soft, because it's quite scary to enter a new way of thinking or leaving old ways of thinking and doing things. And then the portal gradually grows a little bit more gritty, and then there is some clarity and imagination and also agency. So
and this is, of course, an object in a sense, but it's also, but more importantly, it's inviting for rituals for change rather than objects for change.
Absolutely. And then we moved into me. We had a workshop where we, together with Vera Mäder, who is a lecturer senior lecturer in design, we did body work at me, so grounding ourselves as individuals in our bodies. We also invited people who work as change agents, present students and alumni and other people to discuss the conditions for working as a change agent at the level of me. And this is also where we had the film screening with entrepreneurs, cultural entrepreneurs in Ljungby. We opened up more, so we had a panel that asked what is actually Earth Logic Citizen Science, where we had other people from the university. We've also invited people from the Innovation Office, and
when you say other people from the university, it was really across the potential divisions of the university, including administrators or support functions and different kinds of ways of knowing, also collaborators, regional collaborators.
And an aspect of these invitations is to constantly co-create with the people we want to reach at the end of the project as well. We were acting as the Earth Logic language ombudsperson to explore key terminology, both with the steering group of the program that our research is part of, so INQUIS, and also with people working in the university in different capacities. And as you see here, people sitting on the floor, this was a very different meeting space and conversation space where we could invite. We made this constant loop, so we had a workshop with Karishma Chukani Nagani from who's Moroccan artist who currently lives in Sudan, and she did these paper cuts with us exploring our inner gardens. So this was a hybrid workshop. She was online and some of us were in the space and some were online.
Matilda, if I do a bit of housekeeping here, we're halfway through the time now.
Thank you very much. And then we prototyped a gift shop, and here we were also working with another research project, so Holding Surplus House. And we ventured out to Kalmar, so outside the library, and we took with us the world-making flannel graph and invited people to create ingredients for world making. So there's another artifact that we generated. And then we reached more broadly into sort of strategic world field by designing currencies with our students and inviting Bianca Alsenbauer from Brave New Alps, who works with heterodox economies and community economies. And we were also running workshops around new indicators and tools. And then after these these are actually just some moments of the journey, but after this we reflected and we stepped back through the portal. And if we look at this more in facts, we ran 20 events, we had 400 plus participants. We encouraged many ways of knowing and many different themes. and also many dimensions of research we'll come back to. It was a meeting space beyond the ordinary, and at the foundation of this was also a very heartwarming and mind-sprouting collaboration, we would say, with the Culture University, which created a lot of safety for us, which we could then take into our collaborations with all these different people who came to see us. Yeah, so now we go into a new part of this talk, and I hand over back to you, Åsa.
So we can kind of ask us what made this special as citizen science or as research at all. What's at the heart of co-creation? We're back at that question. For example, we mentioned that we made films with some of the participants or co-creators in Ljungby. And on the occasion of premiering those films, we were not the ones who traveled and were invited to others, but we invited into the exhibition. And some people went to the university for the first time, although it's not a great geographical distance, but we know that we all know that knowledge producing institutions can make differences. Here was an attempt at inviting, making it easy, and the library really, it's on the ground floor, it's easy to find, and we premiered those films, which made it possible for the participants to not only see themselves and be mirrored in knowledge production, but also to see that they are not alone. And I think that was the perhaps most beautiful thing, and the most, I think, potent thing about this evening. Seeing yourself being mirrored in knowledge production, knowing that what you do is relevant and the kinds of questions that you ask are part of articulating research questions. And also seeing that you're not alone, that you form a critical mass with others. So in a sense, we were building on relationships that we had already been nurturing and facilitating. Coming together, inviting here also made it possible for those that participated to create their own relationships, independent of us. Not independent, that's a weird word, but like beyond us.
And we also, an important part of that was also the collaboration with Yahya Al-Khatib, who is a filmmaker in Ljungby. So we purposefully sought out the filmmaker who would be involved in the local community and also actually as a cultural entrepreneur.
Yes, and of course that helped in the relationship building. We keep coming back to the relationship building because citizen science, I think, is so much about that. It's about nurturing, staying with the crisis, and the ebbs and flows of energy. And if we exactly. So when we talk about the exhibition and the co-creation, it's not we're not coming from ground zero. We've been building up a lot of, let's say, phronesis and practical knowledge on how to build relationships and invite, let's say, whole bodies into knowledge production. For example, we did co-creative sessions on housing, and then in a sense ended that project with an exhibition, performative lecture, and a continued invitation, spiraling out from what many think of as kitchen islands, trying to build bridges, and it's that bridging work that we try to nurture all the time. There are references here that we can also share afterwards, of course, if you want to see a bit more of how we've been expressing this in publications. And what we've learned over the years is that things don't have to be finished. Actually, it's more complicated and difficult to invite if things are too solid. So if we have open edges, an exhibition that's not finished is a way of inviting as well. And it's also a well-being strategy in a what can we say, pressed research environment. It also invites for dilemmas, such as the kinds of aesthetics that it conveys. What else can we say here, Matilda? Do you want to add something?
I think it continues, but it was also very much like our well-being as well. So we were asked, do you want to do an exhibition? And the first thought was, no way we can make an exhibition. And then we thought, but what if we make an exhibition that's holy, as in it has holes in it? Maybe we can then. And then we saw that actually this is something we really want to share with our colleagues as well, that we think this is a feminist approach to doing work, that showing unfinished work and also daring to do work that's not perfect, which also invites more people into co-creation. So it's also a foundation. So it's about our well-being. Well-being is a theme for EUniWell, obviously. It's also well-being of our colleagues and also opening up more.
And here we come, we're stepping close to our epistemological and ontological understandings. And when you say feminist ways of researching, at least to me, this builds on an understanding of the world being in the world is constantly emerging, the world is constantly becoming, which also takes us away from these kind of solid entities. And how it unfolds depends on who comes together. So it's important to invite and so look for invitations. Students have been a part of this exhibition, and they always come, of course, with questions that we could never have figured out. The same thing with all of the other participants. And this together forms a robust and solid research. I also want to stress the labor of love, how much work our collaborators at the Cultural University have provided in terms of coordination, communication, those are really. Please say again.
Watering plants.
Watering plants, yeah. These parts really cannot be neglected when we talk about citizen science. The coordination, the invitations, the communication, and the staying with.
I think we should also mention that another strategy for working earthologically with our relationships was that we paid all the cultural entrepreneurs that we made films with and stuff. So we employed them as our earthologic teachers because they all have small incomes. They took valuable time to be with us. So that's also something to think about, how we're working in a non-extractivist way with citizen science and co-creation. So in our previous work, we have typically gone out. So we have gone to visit people and other species, which we did in the first phase of this project. But here we invited, and we also made an emerging space as a kind of citizen science methodology. And then it's obviously interesting to think about what emerged from this from a research point of view. And we actually use this space and our collaboration in so many different ways. So we were definitely researching with people. We were also documenting with people. So people were part of making artifacts, materializing insights, but also drawing the conversations and so forth. We were also making sense with people. So what kind of tools do we need? What's happening here? What kind of business models do we need? So how can we really think about efficiency in new ways that, for example, and we were also sharing with people. So the films were made with people as well, and a lot of other material. We can also see this research as informative, which is quite a common way to think about research that generates knowledge. It's definitely generative, so we have these new insights, but also new artifacts like the portal, the flannel graph, the new tools in different ways. It's transformative, so it's not just preparing for change, but it's changing people who are part of it and us, and the front of citizen science, we would argue. And it's also inspirational. And one really clear thing is how many people have afterwards discovered the Culture University space as a place to show their research. So, and we also know that people have found it inspiring that we have shown work that's not finished.
Mm.
But obviously, this comes with some dilemmas, as Åsa mentioned before. So we said, okay, does the exhibition seem unfinished to you? That's good, it can grow with you. And we offered many, many ways in which people could participate. This is not something we can entirely plan, because this is emergent. And I think that it's really important to when we have what eventually comes across as buzzwords like citizen science, we really need to also understand the consequences of emergence, for example, or that the more participation, the less control, the more control, the less participation. Are we ready for that? Even bringing in plants into live materials into an exhibition constantly needs care, and all these relationships constantly need care in different ways. And also caring for the transformation that people are exploring, which sometimes is really fun and sometimes is heavier, with themes of grief and worrying about climate change or financial survival, whatever it might be. Another dilemma we want to raise is that of epistemological hierarchies, so hierarchies between different ways of knowing and understanding knowledge, not least within the university. We have actually come across statements like this. One does worry that you will just end up having coffee. Did we have a lot of coffee and tea? Yes, definitely. Sometimes we had to go back several times to be able to do the filming, as in creating trust. We've also heard, will you stop being wishy-washy next time? Yes, this is the thing with emergent work, that we don't know what will come out. That takes a lot of confidence in a way, but also humility and a constant kind of negotiation of our relationships. And we find that what works best for us is the longer term relationships with other disciplines, such as in the program we're working now, because it takes time to build respect for each other across the disciplines.
And may I also say that it's not only co-creative and creative work that is belittled like this. Also, it's particularly the combination of critical and co-creative work that uses artistic means or invites those who are not considered, let's say, trustworthy witnesses in knowledge production that are belittled. So unfortunately, we're in good company here.
So we ask, are we prepared for the cost of co-creation? And then we mean the time, but also the effort, and also the difficult feelings sometimes when you meet resistance that we can have. And we are also sure that our younger colleagues can experience. So how do we build that confidence and ability to relate in the long term?
And this includes, for example, like how you're looking at is the question here, is the university ready for citizen science? I would argue, we argue that citizen science demands other kinds of support and recognition in terms of time and communication. It's not just about news, it's about inviting, for example, and to have communication support for face-to-face meetings. And also in universities to acknowledge the merits in putting knowledge into motion, not only through high-ranking journals or monograph books, but putting knowledge into motion through face-to-face meetings.
And one way in which we are answering this question, is the university ready for citizen science, is that we think we also have a responsibility as researchers to prepare the university. So that's one of the reasons in this research we've also directed the co-creation into the university. So one of the workshops with the archaeological language ombudsperson, we are working actively with people from the international office, people working with collaboration, with funding, innovation in the university, to, in this case, explore what keywords mean to us. We found that that's a really good way of coming together. So on the menu here, that time was external collaboration, efficiency, change, sustainability, internationalization. How do we think about these words? What do they mean to us? Do we need to redefine them? And as we said again, like also just both how we do the conversation and also the space for these conversations, which level perhaps more, level hierarchies in different ways. And this is something we'll continue to do, very much hoping to address the excellency notion. And this is also something we've already done in other university settings, and we really want to continue doing. So this is an invitation to our EUniWell colleagues. And it brings us also to the last part of this talk. So what happens next? We are continue making films, which is really fun, and they will be a resource that can be used in learning processes in different types of organizations. We're also developing an indicator frameworks so we can know how this work is going well, and also communicate it, and not with the frameworks of the economic growth logic, which we think is limiting. We are working on an exhibition catalog, obviously after the fact, and including lots of people who have visited us as contributors. And we're also taking on new forms. So what will we do, Åsa?
We are we are open for invitations, taking on well, what's the word? We're offering our services as the Earthologic Design Agency, testing new designer roles and methods and practices and tools. So please reach out.
Yes. We also accept different currencies, which is very much integral to the work. So it could be paid forward, it could be a skills share. this is also part of establishing the value of this kind of work, exploring the currencies.
And can I say also before we end this recording that this has been possible within the university realms. So that's, I think, very hopeful. And the Cultural University really made it possible for us to take on this kind of, to make this branch out of the participatory co-creative work that we were already doing. So I really want to end on this kind of hopeful note that it is possible, and with the support of the institutions that are already there.
Thank you.
Thank
and we'd
you.
love to collaborate with you. Thank you.